I was just trying to get through the funeral. My sister slid papers toward me and said, "Sign here, it's routine." I didn't question it until I saw my signature on something I never. The hospital didn't feel real. It felt staged, like everything was happening behind glass, and I was just watching it instead of living it. Someone was talking to me. A doctor, I think. He kept his voice low, steady, practiced. I remember him saying words like sudden and no prior indication, and we did everything we could. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. The last real thing I had from my mom was a message on my phone. A picture of something she tried to bake. It looked terrible, honestly. Burn on one side, uneven. She wrote, "Don't laugh, I tried." I almost replied with something sarcastic. I didn't. I told myself I'd answer later. There wasn't a later. After that, everything started moving fast. Not in a dramatic way. Just quietly, efficiently. People calling. Questions being asked. Decisions that had to be made right away. And Megan stepped in like she always did. "I'll handle it," she said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make a big show of it. She just took over. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was always our dynamic. Megan handled things. I reacted to them. So when she said, "You don't need to worry about any of this," I believed her. Not because I thought she was smarter or better, but because in that moment, I didn't have anything left to give. The house felt wrong when we got back. Too quiet. Too still. Like the air had been emptied out. We stayed mostly in the kitchen. That's where everything happened. Boxes of old photos covered the table. Some still in albums, some loose, edges curled from years of being handled. Megan started sorting through them almost immediately. "We should pick a few for the service," she said. "Something people will recognize." I sat across from her and flipped through pictures without really seeing them. Birthdays. Holidays. Random afternoons that felt important at the time and now felt like evidence of a life that just stopped. At one point, Megan held up a picture of Mom standing in the kitchen, holding a cake that had clearly gone wrong. It was lopsided, slightly burned. Mom was laughing in the photo, like she didn't care. "She never got baking right," Megan said, almost smiling. I nodded, but my throat tightened. I remembered that day. I remembered laughing with her, telling her it still tasted fine. "We'll make this nice," Megan said. "She deserves that." I believed her. That's what keeps bothering me. Not just that I trusted her, but how automatic it was. The next few days blurred together. Calls from relatives. Conversations with the funeral home. Decisions about times, flowers, music. Things I never thought I'd have to decide. Megan handled most of it. She was always on the phone. Always already talking to someone before I even realized something needed to be done. Sometimes she stepped outside to take calls. Other times she went into the hallway and closed the door behind her. I'd hear her voice through the wall, low and controlled, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. When she came back, she always had the same expression. Calm. Focused. "Just sorting things out," she'd say. I didn't question it. I wasn't sleeping much. When I did, it didn't feel like rest. More like my body shutting down for a few hours. Food tasted like nothing. Conversations slipped away from me halfway through. Everything felt heavy. That's when the paper started. The first time, it felt small. Megan slid a document across the table like it was nothing. "Hey, I just need your signature on this," she said. "It's for the service." I picked it up, but the words didn't really land. It looked official. Structured. The kind of document you assume someone else has already checked. "Should I read it?" I asked. She didn't get defensive. She didn't rush me. "You can if you want," she said. "But it's just standard authorization." I already went through it. There was a pause. Not long. Just enough for me to think about it. Then I nodded. "Okay." I signed it. That should have been the moment I slowed down. It should have been the moment I asked more questions. But it wasn't. Because nothing about it felt dangerous. It felt like logistics. Like something you had to get out of the way so you could focus on everything else. The second document came later that same day. "Another one?" I asked, half smiling, trying to make it feel lighter than it was. "Yeah," she said. "There's always more than you think with this stuff." She said it casually. Like it was annoying, but normal. I didn't even ask that time. I just signed. By the third one, it became routine. She'd slide the paper over. I'd pick up the pen. Sign. Slide it back. We barely talked about them. We talked about the funeral instead. About who might show up. About whether certain people should be told. About what Mom would have wanted. That's what makes it hard to look back on. Nothing about those moments felt wrong. They felt quiet. Ordinary. Necessary. There was one time I hesitated. It was later in the evening. The light in the kitchen had gone soft, turning everything slightly dim. Megan handed me another document, but this one looked thicker. More pages. "What's this one?" I asked. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely. "Just part of the paperwork bundle," she said. "Some of it overlaps. It's easier if we just handle it all now instead of dragging it out." I flipped through the pages, but the words didn't stick. Legal terms. Blocks of text. Signatures at the bottom. It's just for the arrangements? I asked again. Yeah, she said, without hesitation. It's all connected. She held my gaze just long enough to make it feel solid. I nodded. And I signed it. I remember setting the pen down after that one and feeling tired. Not physically. Something deeper than that. Like I had just agreed to more than I understood, but didn't have the energy to figure out what. Thank you, Megan said quietly, stacking the papers neatly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't suspicious. It was calm. That's what makes it worse. Because if she had acted strange, if she had rushed me, if she had pushed too hard, maybe I would have noticed. But she didn't. She made it feel normal. And I let it be normal. Looking back, I keep trying to pinpoint the exact moment everything shifted. The exact second where it stopped being about the funeral and became something else. But there isn't one. It's just a series of small decisions. Small signatures. Small moments where I chose trust over clarity. And by the time I started to feel like something was off, it was already too late. The next morning felt quieter than it should have. Not peaceful. Just empty. I woke up on the couch with a blanket I didn't remember grabbing. The house was still. No TV. No footsteps. Just that same heavy silence that had been sitting there since the hospital. For a second, I forgot. Then it came back all at once. I sat up slowly, trying to figure out what day it even was. Everything blurred together after that first night. Time didn't feel like it moved normally anymore. I heard movement in the kitchen. Megan was already awake. Of course she was. When I walked in, she was standing at the counter with a mug in her hand, scrolling through her phone. There were papers spread out beside her, stacked neatly this time, like she had already organized them before I got there. You should eat something, she said without looking up. I'm not hungry. She nodded like she expected that. There's coffee. I poured myself a cup just to have something to hold. It tasted bitter, but at least it felt like something real. What's today? I asked. Meeting with a funeral home, she said. Late morning. I nodded, even though I didn't remember agreeing to that. Okay. She finally looked up at me then, studying my face for a second. You holding up? It wasn't a deep question. It was the kind people ask when they don't expect a real answer. Yeah, I said. It wasn't true, but it was easier. She went back to her phone. Good. We've got a lot to get through. That sentence stuck with me. Not in a bad way at the time. Just the way she said it. Like this was something to complete. A process to move through. I told myself that was just how she coped. We drove to the funeral home together. I stared out the window most of the time, watching the same streets I'd known for years pass by like I'd never seen them before. Everything looked normal. That felt wrong. The funeral home was smaller than I expected. Quiet. Neutral colors. The kind of place designed to make things feel controlled. A man introduced himself when we walked in. Thomas Anderson, he said. I'm very sorry for your loss. I nodded. Megan shook his hand. Thank you, she said. We've started going over some arrangements. Of course she had. We sat down in a small office. Thomas started explaining things, packages, options, timelines. His voice was steady, almost rehearsed. He'd probably had the same conversation 100 times. Megan asked most of the questions. What's the earliest we can schedule the service? What are the options for viewing? What paperwork needs to be finalized today? I just sat there, listening, trying to keep up. At one point, Thomas turned to me. Is there anything specific you'd like included? Music, readings, anything personal? My mind went blank. I don't know, I said. Maybe something simple. Megan stepped in smoothly. She liked classic hymns, she said. We'll keep it traditional. Thomas nodded and made a note. Of course. That was the pattern. I hesitated. Megan answered. I drifted. She stayed focused. When the meeting ended, Thomas handed Megan a folder. This includes everything we discussed, he said. There are a few documents that will need signatures. We can go through them now or you can review them at home. Megan didn't hesitate. We'll take them, she said. It'll be easier to go over everything together. He nodded again, like that was the most normal thing in the world. We left with the folder. In the car, I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. Do we have to do more paperwork today? I asked quietly. Megan exhaled through her nose, not annoyed, just matter of fact. Some of it, yeah. It's better to get it done. I didn't argue. Back at the house, we went straight to the kitchen again. Same table. Same chairs. Same stack of photos pushed slightly to the side now to make room for the new folder. Megan opened it and started sorting through everything like she'd done it 100 times before. Okay, she said. Some of this is just confirming what we already talked about. She slid the first document toward me. Just sign at the bottom. I didn't even ask that time. I signed. She handed me another. And this one. I signed that too. It felt automatic now. Like a routine I'd already accepted. At one point, I paused, pen hovering over the page. How many of these are there? I asked. Not many, she said. Just a few more. She said it lightly, like it didn't matter. I nodded and kept going. We didn't talk much while I signed. The only sounds were the pen moving across paper and the occasional shuffle as she stacked documents into neat piles. After a while, she stood up and took a call. I'll be right back, she said, stepping into the hallway. I sat there alone, staring at the last page I'd signed. Something about it felt heavier than the others. Thicker paper. More text. I flipped it over, trying to read it properly this time. The words still didn't stick. Legal terms. Paragraphs that felt like they were written to be understood by someone else. I heard her voice from the hallway. Low. Controlled. Different from how she spoke to me. Yes, it's already signed, she said. There was a pause. No, she didn't question it. My chest tightened slightly. I froze, listening. Another pause. Everything's moving forward, she said. Then silence. I quickly flipped the paper back to how it was before, like I'd been caught doing something wrong. A second later, she walked back in. Her expression didn't change. Sorry, she said. Just confirming some details. I nodded. Yeah. She glanced at the paper in front of me. You signed that one? Yeah, I said, even though I wasn't sure anymore which one it was. Good. She added it to the stack. That should have been the moment I asked questions. It should have been the moment I said, wait, what did you mean by that call? But I didn't. Because I didn't want to. Because asking would have meant something was wrong. And at that point, I needed everything to still feel manageable. Later that afternoon, Susan Hill stopped by. She had been our neighbor for years. Practically family in the way neighbors sometimes become when you grow up around them. She hugged me the second she saw me. I'm so sorry, she said softly. I nodded into her shoulder. Thanks. She pulled back and looked at Megan. You've been handling everything, she asked. Megan gave a small, polite smile. Just trying to keep things organized. Susan nodded, like she approved of that. Well, it's good you're here, she said. Sarah needs that. I didn't say anything. Susan stayed for a bit, talking about Mom, sharing small stories. Things I barely registered. My attention kept drifting back to the table, to the papers, to the stack that was slowly growing. At one point, Susan glanced at them. Lots of paperwork, she asked. Just standard stuff, Megan said quickly. Funeral arrangements, nothing complicated. Susan didn't question it. Why would she? Everything looked normal. That word again. Normal. After she left, the house felt even quieter. Megan gathered the papers, tapping them into a clean stack. That's most of it, she said. Most? I asked. Yeah, there might be a couple more things later, but the main part is done. I nodded, even though something about that didn't sit right. It felt like we had done more than just funeral arrangements. But I couldn't explain why. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My mind kept replaying that moment in the kitchen. The call. The way she said, she didn't question it. I told myself I misheard. I had to have. But the feeling didn't go away. It just sat there, quiet and heavy. Like something had already been decided. And I was the last one to realize it. The routine settled in before I even noticed it. Wake up. Sit in the kitchen. Sign what needed signing. Talk about the funeral like it was a checklist instead of something real. Megan moved through everything like she had a system. Not rushed, not stressed. Just efficient. That word started to bother me. Efficient. Like there was a right way to get through losing someone, and she had already figured it out. I hadn't. By the third day, the stack of signed papers was thicker than I expected. Not messy. Megan never left anything messy, but definitely bigger than what I thought funeral arrangements should require. I noticed it when she was organizing them again. She lined everything up, tapping the edges so they were perfectly straight. Then she separated them into piles. One went into a folder. Another stayed on the table. What's the difference between those? I asked. She didn't look up. Just categories, she said. Some go to the funeral home, some are for records. Whose records? She paused for half a second. Not long enough to feel obvious, but long enough for me to catch it. Ours, she said. Family records. I nodded slowly. Okay. That answer didn't really explain anything, but I let it go. Because questioning it felt like starting something I wasn't ready to deal with. Later that afternoon, she handed me another document. This one's the last one for today, she said. I took it, but this time I didn't sign right away. I actually looked at it. Not fully. Not carefully. But enough to notice that it didn't look like the others. More pages. Smaller text. A section at the top with legal wording I didn't recognize. What is this one? I asked. Megan stayed calm, like always. It's part of the estate process, she said. Basic authorization so things don't get delayed. That word, estate, made me pause. I thought we were just handling the funeral stuff. We are, she said quickly. This is just connected. It's easier to handle it all at once. I stared at the paper a little longer. Something about it felt different. Heavier. I don't really understand it, I said. You don't need to, she replied. Not sharp. Not defensive. Just certain. That's why I already went through it. There it was again. That same reassurance. The same quiet confidence that made it feel like I was overthinking something simple. I looked at her. She held my gaze. Steady. Calm. Like there was nothing hidden behind it. I exhaled slowly. Okay. And I signed it. That moment sat differently than the others. Not immediately. Not like some dramatic realization. But later. Later, it started to feel like the point where things shifted. After that, Megan stopped handing me papers as often. Not because there weren't any left. Just because she said most of it was already handled. That should have made me feel relieved. It didn't. It felt like I had missed something. Like there had been a window where I could have asked questions, and it had already closed. The day before the funeral, we went through Mom's things again. Clothes. Jewelry. Old letters. Normal things. Things that should have felt grounding. Instead, everything felt like evidence. Like pieces of a life I was trying to hold on to while something else was quietly being taken apart around me. At one point, I found an envelope in a drawer. It had Mom's handwriting on it. My name, Sarah. My chest tightened as I opened it. Inside was a short note. Nothing dramatic. Just a few lines about how proud she was of me, how she knew I'd figure things out in my own way. I read it twice. Then I looked up at Megan. She left me this, I said. Megan glanced at it, then back at me. That's nice, she said. That's it. No curiosity. No questions. Just acknowledgement. Something about that reaction felt off. Did she leave you anything like this? I asked. She shook her head. No. She wasn't really the type to do that. I stared at her for a second. She literally just did. Megan shrugged slightly. I mean in general. I didn't push it. But the feeling stayed. That small disconnect between what I was seeing and how she was reacting to it. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about the word she used earlier. Estate. It didn't match the way everything else had been framed. This wasn't just about the funeral. It never was. The next morning, the house filled up quickly. Relatives. Neighbors. People I hadn't seen in years. Everyone speaking in soft voices, like they were afraid to disturb something fragile. Megan moved through the crowd easily. Greeting people. Answering questions. Keeping everything on track. I stayed close to the edges. At one point, Susan came up to me again. You doing okay? She asked. I nodded automatically. Yeah. She glanced over at Megan, who was talking to a group near the door. She's been amazing through all this, Susan said. You're lucky to have her. I followed her gaze. Megan smiled at something someone said. Calm. Composed. In control. Yeah, I said quietly. Lucky. That word didn't sit right. Not anymore. The funeral itself passed in a blur. Voices. Music. Faces. I stood next to Megan most of the time, just like everyone expected. She gave a short speech. Clear. Controlled. Perfectly said. I couldn't have done that. I barely got through standing there. After it was over, people started leaving in small groups. More quiet hugs. More, I'm sorry. More, she was a wonderful woman. Then it was just us again. Back at the house. Back at the kitchen table. The same table where everything had been signed. Megan set her bag down and pulled out a folder. Neat. Organized. Final. We should go over everything now, she said. Just so there are no surprises later. Something in my chest tightened. Everything? I asked. She nodded. Yeah, everything. I sat down slowly. For the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel numb. I felt alert. Like something was about to be explained. Or revealed. Or confirmed. I just didn't know which one yet. I sat across from her at the same kitchen table. Same chair. Same view. Same stack of papers between us. But it didn't feel the same anymore. Before, everything had felt foggy. Distant. Like I was moving through someone else's life. Now it felt sharp. Focused. Like something was about to land and I wasn't ready for it. Megan opened the folder slowly, like she had done this before. Like she already knew exactly how the conversation would go. We should just go through this step by step, she said. I nodded, even though my stomach felt tight. Okay. She pulled out the first document and set it in front of me. This is just a summary of what's been processed so far, she said. I looked down at it. This time, I actually tried to read. Not skim. Not glance. Read. Names. Dates. Legal wording. My eyes moved across the page slower than they had all week, but the meaning still felt just out of reach. What am I looking at? I asked. Just confirmation, she said. Everything we already handled. I nodded slowly. Okay. She pulled out another document. And this is the finalized part. Finalized. That word landed harder than it should have. Finalized. I repeated. Yeah, she said. It just means it's complete. She said it so simply. Like it didn't carry weight. Like it didn't matter. I looked at the paper in front of me again. My name was there. Her name was there. Signatures. Dates. All of it real. What exactly is complete? I asked. She didn't hesitate. The property transfer. I blinked. The what? She looked at me, calm as ever. The house, she said. It's been transferred. For a second, I thought I misunderstood her. Transferred didn't mean anything yet. Not in a way my brain could grab onto. Transferred to who? I asked. She held my gaze. To me. I let out a small laugh before I could stop it. Not because it was funny. Because it didn't make sense. What do you mean? I said. Like, temporarily? Or, it's in my name now, she said. Just like that. Flat. Clear. Done. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. That's not right, I said quickly. Mom would never do that. She always said it would be split. Megan didn't react. No defensiveness. No frustration. Just that same calm expression. Plans changed, she said. She updated things. When? I asked. A while ago. That doesn't make sense, I said, shaking my head. We talked all the time. She would have told me. She didn't tell me everything either, Megan said. But this is what she decided. I stared at her. Something about the way she said it didn't match the situation. It was too smooth. Too prepared. Show me, I said. She slid the document closer. Right there, she said, pointing. I followed her finger. Legal language. Ownership transfer. Names. Her name. Not mine. My chest tightened. No, I said quietly. No, this isn't what I signed. She tilted her head slightly. It is, she said. Your signature is right there. I looked. And it was. My handwriting. My name. Exactly how I always sign it. But I didn't remember signing this. I never agreed to this, I said. You sign the documents, she replied. Her voice didn't change. No emotion. No hesitation. Just a fact. I thought it was for the funeral, I said, my voice starting to shake. You said it was for the arrangements. It was all connected, she said. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Connected. Like that explained it. Like that made it okay. You didn't tell me what it actually was, I said. You didn't ask, she replied. That stopped me. Not because it made sense. Because it was technically true. I didn't ask enough. I didn't read. I didn't slow down. But that didn't feel like the whole story. You knew I wasn't in a place to question anything, I said. You knew I wasn't thinking clearly. She crossed her arms, not defensive, just settling into herself. I didn't force you to sign anything. There it was. That sentence. Clean. Controlled. Impossible to argue with in a simple way. But it broke something in me anyway. Because she wasn't denying it. She was just reframing it. So that's it? I asked. You just take the house? I'm not taking it, she said. It's already mine. The way she said mine made my stomach twist. What about me? I asked. You can still come here, she said quickly. It's not like I'm kicking you out. Come here. Not live here. Not share it. Visit. The shift was subtle. But it changed everything. This was supposed to be ours, I said. Mom always said. Mom trusted me, Megan interrupted. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. That sentence landed harder than anything else she'd said. I froze. What does that mean? I asked slowly. It means she trusted me to handle things, Megan said. To make decisions. To make decisions for both of us? I asked. She knew I'd take care of it, she said. Take care of it. Like this was care. Like this was protection. Did she even know exactly what she was signing? I asked. For the first time, Megan hesitated. Just a second. But I saw it. She trusted me, she repeated. And that was the answer. Not yes. Not no. Just that. I leaned back in my chair, staring at her. Everything from that week started lining up all at once. The calls. The papers. The way she kept saying it was routine. You planned this, I said quietly. Her expression didn't change. I handled it, she replied. That was worse. Because it wasn't denial. It was ownership. I was sitting right here, I said, my voice low. Signing whatever you put in front of me while I was barely functioning. And I made sure everything was taken care of, she said. There was no anger in her voice. No guilt either. Just certainty. Like she genuinely believed that what she did was reasonable. That's what made it hard to fight. Because she wasn't acting like someone who thought they did something wrong. She was acting like someone who thought they did what needed to be done. I looked down at the paper again. My signature. Clear as day. Real. Binding. And suddenly, all those small moments didn't feel small anymore. They felt intentional. Every pause. Every reassurance. Every, it's just standard. I stood up slowly. I need some air, I said. She didn't stop me. Take your time, she said. Like this was just another step in the process. Like everything was still under control. I walked out of the kitchen, past the hallway, past the photos still scattered around, and stepped outside. The air felt colder than it should have. I stood there for a long time, trying to figure out what just happened. Not just legally, but between us. Because this wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about trust. And I didn't know if there was anything left of it. I didn't go back inside right away. I stayed on the front porch, staring out at the street like it might give me something solid to hold onto. Cars passed. Someone walked their dog. Normal life kept moving like nothing had changed. But everything had. The house behind me didn't feel like mine anymore. And I wasn't even sure when that happened. After a while, the cold started to settle in, so I went back inside. The kitchen light was still on. Megan was exactly where I left her, sitting at the table with the folder in front of her. Like she knew I'd come back. Like this wasn't over. "You okay?" she asked. The question felt automatic. Like something she said out of habit, not because she actually expected an answer. "No," I said. That was the first honest thing I'd said all week. She nodded slowly, like she accepted that. "I figured," she said. I stayed standing for a second, then walked back to the table and sat down again. The folder was still there. Closed now. Neat. Finished. "Start from the beginning," I said. "Don't simplify it. Don't skip anything. I want to know exactly what I signed." She looked at me for a moment, then opened the folder again. "Okay," she said. She pulled out a set of documents and placed them in front of me. "This is the transfer authorization," she said. "It allows the property to be reassigned without delays." I stared at the page. "That's not how you explained it," I said. "I explained what was relevant at the time," she replied. "That's not the same thing." She didn't respond to that. She moved to the next document. "This one confirms consent," she said. "Both parties acknowledge the change." "Both parties?" I repeated. "You mean me and you?" She nodded. "You signed it." My chest tightened again. I didn't know what I was signing. "You knew you were signing legal documents," she said. "That's not the same thing as understanding them." She didn't argue that. She just moved to the next page. "This is the final filing," she said. "It makes everything official." Final. There it was again. That word that closed doors. I pushed the papers slightly away from me. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked. "Why not say it directly? Hey, I'm putting the house in my name. Why not have that conversation?" She leaned back in her chair. "Because it would have turned into this," she said. "This?" I repeated. "An argument," she said. "Emotional, drawn out, unnecessary." I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "So instead, you just avoided it? You let me sign something I didn't understand so you wouldn't have to deal with a conversation." "I handled it efficiently," she said. That word again. Efficient. Like this was a task. Like I was part of the process, not a person in it. "You handled it quietly," I said. She didn't deny that. Silence settled between us for a moment. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in the back of my mind since she first said it. "When did this happen?" She didn't pretend not to understand. "The documents were prepared before," she said. "Before what?" She looked at me. "Before she passed." My stomach dropped. "How long before?" "A few days." "Days. Not months. Not years. Days. You're telling me that a few days before Mom died, she suddenly decided to give you the house?" I said. "She wanted things to be simple," Megan replied. "That's not an answer." "It's the one she gave me." I shook my head slowly. "No. That's the one you're giving me." Her expression didn't change. "That's what happened," she said. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. Was she even fully aware of what she was signing? There it was. The question I had been circling around. For the first time, Megan didn't respond right away. Just a second. But I saw it again. That hesitation. "She trusted me," she said. Same answer. Same deflection. "That's not what I asked," I said. "It's the truth," she replied. "No," I said quietly. "It's not the whole truth." She didn't argue. She didn't confirm. She just let it sit there. And that told me enough. I leaned back again, feeling something shift inside me. Not shock anymore. Not confusion. Something colder. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I said. "I knew what needed to be done," she replied. "There's a difference." Not to me. That landed hard. Because she meant it. She really believed that. "That house wasn't just property," I said. "It was ours. It was supposed to stay that way." "I live closer," she said. "I'm the one who can maintain it." "It makes sense." "Makes sense to who?" I asked. "To me," she said. There it was again. "Not to Mom. Not to us. To me." "So you decided that was enough," I said. "That your reasoning mattered more than actually talking to me." "I didn't think you'd handle it well," she said. I stared at her. "You didn't even give me the chance." "You were already overwhelmed," she said. "You couldn't even focus on basic decisions. This would have made it worse." "So your solution was to take the decision away completely?" "I took responsibility," she corrected. That word. Responsibility. She dressed everything in words that made it sound reasonable. Practical. Controlled. But underneath it, the reality didn't change. She made a choice for both of us. Without me. I looked down at the papers again. My signature was on every page. Clear. Undeniable. That was the part that made everything harder. Because legally, she was right. I agreed. Even if I didn't understand it at the time. "So what happens now?" I asked. She shrugged slightly. Nothing has to change, she said. You can still come here whenever you want. Come here. Again. That word that turned me into a guest. I don't want to visit my own home, I said. She didn't respond to that. Because there wasn't a way to fix it. Not really. I stood up again, slower this time. I think I'm done here for today, I said. She nodded. Take whatever time you need. Like she was being reasonable. Like she was giving me space. But the decision had already been made. Time didn't change anything now. I walked out of the kitchen, past the hallway, into the living room. Everything looked the same. Same furniture. Same photos. Same space I grew up in. But it didn't feel the same. It felt owned. By someone else. Even if that someone was my sister. I grabbed my bag from the chair near the door. As I reached for the handle, I hesitated. Not because I wanted to stay. Because I didn't know what leaving meant anymore. Then I opened the door and stepped outside. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel confused. I felt clear. Not better. Not okay. Just clear. About one thing. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a choice she made. And now I had to decide what I was going to do about it. I didn't go back for a few days. Not because I didn't want to. Because I didn't know how to. There's something strange about losing a place before you physically lose access to it. The house was still there. My key still worked. My things were still inside. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. That shift happened instantly. And I couldn't undo it. I stayed in my apartment, moving through the same routines I had before all of this, but everything felt slightly off. Like I was doing things out of habit instead of intention. At night, I kept thinking about the kitchen table. The papers. My signature. Over and over. Not in a dramatic way. Just small flashes. Moments I couldn't quite let go of. After a while, I started looking into it. Not aggressively. Not like I was gearing up for a fight. Just trying to understand. I called Daniel Harris, the lawyer whose name was on the documents. I didn't tell Megan. I didn't even know what I was hoping to hear. When he picked up, his tone was professional, calm. Law office, he said. This is Daniel. Hi, I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. My name is Sarah Carter. I'm calling about the Carter estate. There was a brief pause. Yes, he said. I'm familiar with the case. How can I help you? I swallowed. I wanted to understand the timeline. When everything was finalized. Another pause. Papers shifting on his end. The primary documents were processed shortly before your mother's passing, he said. How shortly? I asked. A few days, he replied. My grip tightened around the phone. And my sister handled most of that? I asked. Yes, he said. Megan was the primary point of contact. Of course she was. Did my mom fully approve everything? I asked carefully. There was a longer pause this time. I can't speak to personal discussions, he said. But all documents were signed and witnessed properly. Properly. Legal. Valid. That's what mattered. Right, I said quietly. Okay, thank you. I hung up and sat there for a while, staring at nothing. That conversation didn't give me anything I could use. It just confirmed what I already knew. Legally, everything was solid. There wasn't some obvious loophole or mistake. There was just timing. And trust. A few days later, I went back to the house. I didn't tell Megan I was coming. I just showed up. My key still worked. That was the first thing I noticed. The second thing was how normal everything looked. Nothing had changed. Or at least, nothing obvious. I stepped inside slowly, like I was entering someone else's space. Megan was in the kitchen again. Of course she was. She looked up when she heard the door. Oh, she said. Hey. Not surprised. Not tense. Just casual. Hey, I replied. There was a small pause. You didn't tell me you were coming, she said. I didn't think I needed to, I said. Another pause. Then she nodded. Right. I walked further inside, setting my bag down near the door like I always used to. That small habit felt strange now. Like I was pretending something hadn't changed. I came to grab a few things, I said. Okay, she replied. Take whatever you need. Whatever you need. Not ours. Not shared. Just what I could take with me. I went to my old room. The door was open. Nothing had been moved. Clothes still in the closet. Books still on the shelf. Small things that made it feel like I still belonged there. I grabbed a few things at first. Then more. Not everything. Just enough to feel like I was reclaiming something. At one point, I stopped and sat on the edge of the bed. I looked around the room. This had been my space for years. And now it felt temporary. Like I was already halfway out of it. When I went back to the kitchen, Megan was standing by the counter. Watching me. You don't have to take everything right away, she said. I know, I replied. Another pause. We can figure something out, she added. That sentence again. I looked at her. What does that actually mean? I asked. She hesitated slightly. We'll make it work, she said. That's not an answer. She sighed, just a little. It means we don't have to turn this into something bigger than it is. I let out a quiet breath. It already is, I said. She didn't respond. Because she knew that was true. I leaned against the table, crossing my arms. I talked to Daniel, I said. Her expression didn't change much, but I saw it. That quick flicker of awareness. Okay, she said. He told me the documents were finalized days before she passed. That's correct, she said. You were the one handling everything. Yes. No denial. No hesitation. Just confirmation. I nodded slowly. I figured. Silence stretched between us. Then I asked the question I wasn't sure I wanted the answer to. If I had actually read everything, if I had questioned it, would you have still done it? She didn't answer right away. She looked at me, really looked at me this time. Then she said I would have explained it. That's not what I asked. Another pause. No, she said finally. It would have been harder. Harder. Not impossible. Not wrong. Just harder. I nodded. Yeah, I said. That sounds about right. Because that's what this came down to. Not necessity. Not urgency. Convenience. It was easier for her to do it this way. And I was the one who paid for that. I picked up my bag. I'm not going to fight you for it, I said. She looked surprised. You're not. I shook my head. No. Legally, I don't have much to stand on. And honestly, I don't want to drag this out. She nodded slowly. I think that's the right decision, she said. That stung more than I expected. Of course she thought it was the right decision. It worked in her favor. But that doesn't mean this is okay, I added. She didn't respond. I took a breath. You didn't just handle paperwork, I said. You made a decision for both of us when I couldn't even think straight. I made sure things didn't fall apart, she said. They weren't going to fall apart, I replied. We could have figured it out together. She didn't argue. Because there was no way to prove that now. That option was gone. I adjusted the strap on my bag. I'll come back for the rest later, I said. Take your time, she replied. Always calm. Always reasonable. Always just enough to make it seem like she wasn't the problem. I walked toward the door again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I opened it and stepped outside. The air felt different. Not better. Just clearer. Like something had settled. I didn't lose the house that week. Not really. I lost the version of my sister I thought I knew. And I don't think I'm getting that back. It's been a few months now. I've moved most of my things out. I don't go there often. When I do, it feels exactly how you'd expect. Polite. Controlled. Careful. Like we're both pretending we're okay with how things turned out. Sometimes I still think about that week. About the table. The papers. The way she said, sign here, it's routine. And I wonder what would have happened if I had just stopped. If I had read one page more carefully. If I had asked one more question. But I didn't. And now I'm here. Trying to figure out if this was my mistake. Or if my own sister saw an opportunity when I was at my lowest and took it.